Hello there and welcome to Kaiti Draws. If you haven't been here before, what I like to do is I like to draw goddesses from all across the globe and we get to learn about them simultaneously. So you get to see me speed painting and we're going to be deep diving into some history. If that's something that you really like, make sure to subscribe. It really helps me out. The button's right here. I almost got confused. Anyway, so definitely subscribe, like, comment. Let me know what goddesses or heroines even that you want to learn about, because that's what I'm here for. And I like to draw them because mythology is insane. If you haven't noticed, it's crazy. So today what we're actually going to do is we are wrapping up my whole 5-parter. It has been a long journey. We've been hanging out in Tibet, exploring Tibetan Buddhism. We've been exploring Tibetan history. Today, we are going to be talking about the last Tsringma sister, or long life sister, and her name is Tashi Tseringma. She is the leader, the one, the center of them all. So yes, that's what we're going to be doing today. Also, I want to note, I have been doing the research for this for it's been 2 months, you guys, for this Tibetan Tsringma sister deep dive, and I have made mistakes. So I'm going to be releasing a video in about a week, maybe 2 weeks, we'll see, pretty soon, that explains all of my mistakes, because I want to be accountable for all of those things. I don't want to mislead you guys or tell you that this is what the facts are and then they're not, because that's not what I want to do. So make sure to stay tuned for that, because if you've been here and you've watched every single video, I just want to correct myself, because I don't want me to be totally ignorant about all of this. It can be very confusing going into mythology, not knowing any of the history or lore when you start out, and lots of things just unravel, and sometimes it snowballs. In this case, I decided to take a 5-parter on, and it was a very obscure goddess, and it was a little confusing, that's for sure. I could have done it better. So stay tuned for a video that's gonna kind of clarify a few things, explain my process, and yeah, I hope it helps. So now we are going to talk about Tashi Tseringma a little bit, because I think you guys kind of understand the whole story behind the Tsringma Sisters by now, but we are going to be talking about the Sherpa people. And they are the people that live in the Himalayas primarily, but they are everywhere. So I'm really excited to learn and talk about them. So let's get into it. Let's take a little jaunt to the Himalayas. This is where we will find 150,000 of the mountain-dwelling people called the Sherpa. You can find them in Nepal, Sikkim State, India, and Tibet or China. Small groups of Sherpas also live in parts of North America, Australia, Europe. You get it. They're everywhere. Sherpas are of Tibetan culture and descent and speak a language called Sherpa, which is closely related to the form of Tibetan spoke in Tibet. Sherpa is predominantly a spoken language. The greatest number of Sherpas live in Nepal, and they speak Nepali and Sherpa. Those educated in Tibet or in Tibetan Buddhist monasteries may speak Tibetan. Most of those whose livelihood depends on mountaineering also speak one or several of the languages of climbers and tourists. A large population of Sherpas reside in the Khumbu Valley, the gateway to the southern side of Mount Everest. Because their physical prowess at high altitudes is unmatched, they are the backbone of climbing expeditions. This honestly is a newer feat. it wasn't until the 20th century that the Sherpas had attempted to even scale the region's mountains. They view this place as the homes of the gods. It hasn't been since recent history that they have accepted mountaineering as basically a way of life. Sherpas retain their respect for the mountains and have attempted to prevent foreign climbers from engaging in profaning and polluting activities. This includes things like killing animals, burning garbage, which they fear will anger the gods. The name Sherpa means Easterner, making an actual reference to their origins in Khams, Eastern Tibet. Here's a map so you can see. They began to migrate in the 15th century, making a living for many centuries as traders, herders, and farmers. Things that they would trade were like salt, rice, wool, yaks they would herd, and cows, and then they also had potatoes, barley, and buckwheat as food staples. The Sherpas have, by and large, retained their traditional customs, even though some villages have limited telephone service and energy for lighting and cooking. They grow or raise most of their food herding yaks and planting potatoes. Each household brews its own, it's called chang. It's a thick, rice-based beer. I really want to go there someday. It sounds really interesting. Most Sherpas belong to the ancient Nyingma sect of Tibetan Buddhism, but their practice is a mixture of Buddhism and animism. Sherpa culture is based on a clan system that they call, I believe, Ru. True Sherpa heritage is determined through patrilineage, and all Sherpas belong to one of 18 clans and bear a clan name. So let's talk about the religious practices of the Sherpa, because this is about goddesses. So far, I have emphasized in this 5-parter Tibetan Buddhism and Tibetan history, but the Sherpa still believe in one Tsringma sister deeply, and that is Myolang Tsengma, and we talked about her on our first video. She is the goddess of Mount Everest, also called Chomolungma, which is also called the goddess mother of the world. They also acknowledge 3 other greater gods called, and I apologize, called Choyo, Chogaro, and Chochuring, who reside on the other peaks of the Mount Everest group. These gods tend to have the most superiority. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Each Sherpa clan has their own clan god in which they worship. They also have serpent gods called Lu, which we talked about in our previous episode for a little more information on the Lu. The clan gods are worshipped wherever their respective clan actually resides. So they move around with each clan. At least that's what it sounds like. The Lu spirits, or the serpent spirits, are a little more complicated. The members of every family worship a Lu as their house or family deity. The spirit resides inside the house, and you will likely see a stone structure outside the house or in a nearby tree around there. These Lu gods can be good, evil, a little bit of both, and they may be any of these aspects. Sherpa shamans are there to assess what the Lu spirit's nature is and to help the family find acceptable offerings for these spirits. Speaking of shamans, a really interesting thing that Sherpa shamans can do is fall into a state of trance at will. This gives them the ability to become the mouthpiece for the gods and spirits to answer questions. It seems like, depending on the area, Sherpa shamans either enter the world of spirits, journey to the land of the dead, or the spirit possesses them. This isn't universal for all Sherpa clans, it differs. In Sherpa culture, they have shamans whose function is to deal with the relationship between man and the spirits living currently. But Sherpas also have lamas. Here's where we start to intersect. Lamas have a function, and it is to prepare humans for the life in the world beyond and help the souls of the departed on their way to paradise. Shamans tend to have, quote, lesser power. Believe it or not, they still have a lot of power. They are mostly guides. But some believe that lamas can actually potentially affect events on Earth with prayer and worship and exorcising demons. The Sherpa do believe in things like karma, the wheel. Even Guru Rinpoche, also known as Padman Sambhava, is regarded as a saint. Some texts indicate. One scholarly article states that the Sherpa believe that staying alive is intrinsically, quote, sinful. So basically, over time, we acquire a considerable amount of bad karma. It actually makes sense if you think about it. So for instance, plowing a field, that literally results in the death of all kinds of insects. Even if you aren't the person plowing the crop, you ate the meal made from, essentially, murder. So inherently, you kinda did a bad. They acknowledge this stuff happens just from living. That doesn't necessarily mean that they shouldn't try to do better because they're all screwed. In fact, they really strive to do better. Like I said, they believe in the wheel where we reincarnate. It'll be good or worse depending on the actions of your previous life. One thing that will redeem you, as the Sherpa believe, is actually having remorse for your actions. If you are constantly seeking atonement and meritorious work, things will work in your favor. An interesting piece of knowledge I found was that the Sherpa word for criminal literally means without shame. It seems like if you are trying to do good and always working to be better for yourself and the community, spiritually, emotionally, physically, etc., you're gonna be fine. Something unique to the Sherpa that is not Buddhist is that they construct these walls called mani. These are upright stone slabs that are usually set up in memory of a deceased kinsman. New sections can be added whenever someone wants to commemorate another family member. They also bear sacred inscriptions and act as a symbol of prestige. This is a way of gaining merit as a builder because they facilitate their progress to the next life, the kinsman. This is not something seen, at least I believe, in any Buddhist country, but they do show up in the hill tribes of Assam, and this is near Bhutan. The Sherpa culture is incredibly interesting, and I can't wait to learn more when we check out other goddesses and hopefully heroines out there. But I want to talk about Tashi Tseringma. It's really interesting because Tashi Tseringma is the leader of the Tsringma Sisters, but she seems to have dissipated in importance over time. while we have Myo-Lang Tsengma, who has risen up to the top so far that she is the goddess of Mount Everest to the Sherpas. That's a big deal. Now, Tashi Tseringma, she is white, holding a golden 9-pronged vajra in her right hand and a long life flask ornamented with a Buddhist swastika knot in her left hand. Tseringma is the all-powerful earth goddess of protection. She is the leader of the 5 long life sisters, and she rides on a snow lioness. She offers supreme protection against all forces that threaten your safety. Tashi Tseringma rules from the center. Her and her sisters will protect you from harm. In ancient art, you will find her in the center, surrounded by her sisters, all riding their mounts. For my interpretation, I took directly from one painting in particular of Tashi Tseringma. I was really drawn by the particular aesthetic, and honestly, I really love the snow lioness design. I hope you enjoy. The more I explored and studied the Sherpa people, the more I realized that there's not a lot of information out there, for one. Two, the span of studies that have been done are, decades and decades long. I was reading articles from 1940 all the way up to present day, and I am sure those traits, some of the cultural norms have changed. Like, that's pretty normal, especially with Western influence, because they weren't integrated with the Western world or a lot of the world for a while, and then all of a sudden they became pivotal for any mountaineer that wants to decide to climb up Everest. Like, that, became a big role for the Sherpa people. I love that they've maintained a lot of their ancient cultural roles and norms. I think it's really interesting that they've been able to do that. There's some pros and cons there, obviously, but I love that we can actually see a bit of what what Sherpa culture might have been like back in the day, even in the 14th century versus now. It's very cool. So now that we've wrapped up the story of the Tsringma sisters, I hope you understand and can maybe see just how complicated it can be mythology. I mean, there is just in Tibet, in that area of the world, there's so much to unpack, and there's a lot to detangle, especially, I have to be honest, as a Westerner. There's a lot of things that I did not grow up with and certain perspectives that I don't understand, and I have to take some time to really let things sink in and to really truly understand the cultural norms, and also to approach this in a way that's not ethnocentric as well. That's my goal, and I'm really excited that we've learned so much about Tibet just by talking about the Tsringma sisters. That's not even going into goddesses and gods that are way more known in Tibetan culture or Nepal or Burma, any of those places that are in that surrounding area. So I'm really excited about that, but it was challenging because there aren't a lot of articles out there that really talk about what has happened with Tibet without, for instance, Chinese influence, as we can safely say. But it's interesting regardless. So like I said in the beginning of the video, I am going to be posting another video that's going to kind of correct a lot of these issues that I've run into as I've done more research on Tibetan culture. I have to be honest, I've been a little rusty when it comes to researching cultures around the world. It's been a while since I've done anthropological work, and drawing gods and goddesses and really just kind of analyzing and figuring out what articles are true, what ones are not. So I challenged myself here with the Tsringma Sisters, and I have to correct some of the mistakes I made. So stay tuned for that video. If you're somebody that really needs all the facts right, which I would hope you are, I am. That's why I'm making a video. Make sure to watch that video when it is published, because yeah, there won't be my art, but that's okay. We're gonna correct some issues here. So in our next video, we are now going to travel all the way to Mexico. We are going to talk about the Aztec goddess, the Lady of the Dead, and I'm very excited. I've got a dark side about me, and I love horror stuff, and I'm really excited because she's super cool. Her name is Mictlantecuhtli. I believe I'm saying that correctly. Mictlantecuhtli. It's so cool. I am so excited to learn more about Aztec culture. That was in Mesoamerican culture, especially ancient Mesoamerica. And yeah, I'm just super thrilled to learn more about this. She is kind of going to be a two-parter, just a forewarning. But what I'm going to do is, because she's kind of, or is, the influence for Dia de los Muertos, and I am going to do a two-parter because we have one description of her that was pre-Spanish colonization, and then we have a different one that's post. So we're going to learn more about ancient Aztec culture coming up next week, and then we are going to explore more about Dia de los Muertos on Dia de los Muertos this year. So you have to wait until November 2nd. I apologize, but that is the all-around plan here. Thank you guys so much for watching these videos. Again, the best way to support me is by subscribing down below, to like, and to comment. The Lady of the Dead that we're going to be doing next week, the Aztec Goddess of Death, she was a suggestion from one of my fans. So if you guys have goddesses and heroines that you want me to explore, definitely comment down below. You can find me on Facebook, on Instagram. I do TikTok. I'm really bad at social media. I am trying, but it's hard. But you can find me there, leave a message, let me know what goddesses you enjoy, and I'm gonna try to deep dive those. Thank you guys so much, and I will talk at you in 2 more weeks.